What a beautiful morning it is. Peaceful, bright, clear, fresh, open, shining. Even if you were to do no other spiritual practice, even if you were to just come and sit in nature and just be open, just drop everything, just leave everything aside and simply be open to receive the clues in nature, because the clues are everywhere. But I wanted to speak about a specific practice today. This is a practice that I developed when I was experiencing chronic pain. I was in a period of time where the pain was getting quite unbearable. It was bad enough that I couldn't sleep, I couldn't function very well. It was affecting my daily life to a great extent. And it was getting better, but very slowly. The pain meds weren't working, they weren't touching it. But it was getting better slowly with everything I was doing. And so it was one of those situations where you're just going to have to endure it until it's fully better. And there wasn't much that I or anyone could do about it. But it was during that time and during that process that I developed this practice. Because I needed out of the body. I needed gone. Because the pain was becoming so stressful and so unbearable, and with my background with addiction, my background with mental health issues, I needed to find a way to stay sane, really. And so I developed this particular meditative practice, a method of experiencing the consciousness that is outside of the body. After all, a lot of these teachers talk about the infinite nature of universal consciousness, the fact that consciousness is everywhere, it's not just localized within the body and mind. And yet, often in meditation, we are focused entirely on the body. But in this particular practice, we're actually going to focus on what's outside of the body. Because I found in developing this practice, it worked. It worked. The pain was still there. The body and mind was still there. The sensations were there. But I wasn't claustrophobically encased, entrapped, entombed within the individual body-mind. My experience left the individual body-mind and was free to experience the infinite expanse of clear, pure, open, peaceful, blissful, spacious awareness. Then as my pain subsided, in time, it was very slow but it did happen, as this subsided, I continued with this practice. And I found that it was effective not only for the chronic pain in the body, but also as a standalone practice in itself to deepen and further my felt experience of the universe. My felt experience of consciousness. So I kept doing this practice, and I'd like to share this method that I developed, this practice. It's a meditative practice, a meditative awareness. Now, this is just a practice and a method. I'm not putting this forwards as a philosophical position. I'm not putting this forward as a model of the universe or as an entire... It's not a complete curriculum in itself. It's just a singular method, a singular practice. And as it's been so helpful for me, and it's been so powerful for me, I thought it'll most likely help somebody else as well. As the chronic pain began to subside, I was still obviously dealing with the psychological turmoil, the anxiety, the low mood, the stress. And yet, when I practiced this, all of that was gone as well. So this works for the psychological pain as well as the physical pain. And when I am engaged in this method of experiencing consciousness, all suffering vanishes. So here it is. Without further ado, let's get it done. So whatever practice you do, whatever method that you usually use to meditate, start there. Start with that. And my usual disclaimer for this type of practice, because it is quite intense, okay? It is quite... it's powerful. And so the usual disclaimer is I wouldn't attempt this whilst driving or whilst looking after children, operating heavy machinery, anything that's going to require you to be awake, because sometimes people do fall asleep whilst doing this type of practice. And beginning with whatever way that you bring yourself into the present moment. And just a sense of relaxing as best you can into this. So connecting entirely with the now. Just this, in the here and now. There's no past, not engaged with any thoughts or feelings about the past. Not really engaged with any thoughts or feelings about the future. Just bringing yourself into a full and total awareness of this moment, in the here and now, just this. And become aware of the sensations in the body, but just an awareness that the sensations are there. So there is no need to form any opinions. There's no need to form any image. There's no need to form any analysis of what's going on in the body and mind at this time, just what is. And just being aware of what's there within this present moment. Now, I find this works better if I have a natural object to focus on, but you could really choose anything, absolutely anything. Just choose an object within your visual field that you can see clearly, that you can observe clearly. And see if it's possible to feel that object. So for me, I'm looking at a tree right now, and just extending consciousness to the space around me, and just seeing if it's possible to feel the sensations of the external object. Now, don't go to the imagination, because the imagination can conjure up some sense of what it would be like. The imagination can do this, but that's not what we're focused on, because that just becomes another object of attention, and that's not what we're focusing on now. We're actually extending the consciousness outwards and seeing if it's possible to feel the sensations within that object as if you were aware of the object, and if that object could perceive. Can we perceive what the object perceives? Can we sense what the object senses? If that object had a mind, can we become aware of everything that is within that object? And stay with this for a little while. You're aware that this individual body-mind is here still, with all of the sensations that are in it, all of the thoughts, all of the feelings. Yes, those things are all still there, not a problem. But extending consciousness outwards, and can we feel the consciousness within that external object? Now, after some time, you find that it actually can't be done. And you might think, well, does that not defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do? But we're going to stay with this right now. Just stay with me. Continuing to focus, seeing if it's possible to feel the consciousness of that external object. And realizing here that it can't be done. So now, within the felt experience of consciousness, understanding and feeling on an experiential level that there is a blankness there. You are aware that you can't feel something. Stay with that for a little while. Stay in the awareness of what you can't feel. This might be tricky. The mind is slippery and will keep wanting to snap back into the body and mind, this individual body and mind. But just understanding that this is going to carry on, okay? The body and mind is going to carry on regardless, alright? And if you've been doing this for a little while, you understand that if it's important, you won't forget it. If it's important, it will remain. So don't worry so much about body and mind. You will find that you periodically snap back to the body and mind, but we're not so interested in that now. Just let it run in the background, so to speak. Just allow it to run in the background. By extending that consciousness outwards towards the objects and feeling that you are aware of a space. You are aware that you can't feel something. Now we can take the attention off of that particular object and do the same thing with any object around us, and we find quite quickly now the same thing. Can't feel it. I am aware that there's a limit to what I can sense. There is a limit to the sensations in this body-mind. There seems to be a sort of vague outline for the sensations of this body, and there is a limit to what the senses, the perceptions of this body and mind can pick up. But extending that consciousness outwards, finding any single object that you can perceive in the visual world around you, all of it is just a blank space. It can't be felt. You can see it with the perceptions of this body-mind, but you can't feel it. Now extending the consciousness to the entire space around you in that full 360-degree sphere, regardless of whether there are objects, things, animals or people within that space. Just extend the consciousness in that 360-degree sphere around you, and experience the awareness of what you can't feel. We're going to stay with this for a little while, so forgive me for repeating myself here, but this is important. Experience the awareness of what you can't feel. Experience the awareness of what you can't feel. Experience the awareness of what you can't feel. Really do this now. This is your opportunity. This is your chance to truly experience what the masters have been talking about all along. We don't need to go to mind. We're not going to intellectualize anything. We're not creating a concept. We're not creating a belief. We're not even developing a practice or discipline. It's just a simple shift in the felt experience of consciousness. Experience the awareness of what you can't feel. You may want to pause the video and just really take some time to truly get this, to truly experience this, to deepen the experience, because you might find that the mind keeps going this way, that way, and it's hard to focus, but feel free to pause the video and just take time, take time, take time. But once there and established, once the experience of the awareness of everything you can't feel is felt, not understood, not imagined, not figured out, not visualized, but actually felt. And it's crucial that you feel this. It is crucial that you experience this. And from there, let us broaden our understanding. So the body and mind has a limit. There are seeming edges to the sensations in the body. The mind has a limit. There is a limit to what the mind can understand and intellectualize, think about, imagine. There's a limit to this. There is a limit to our perception, what we can see, hear, touch, taste and smell. There's an edge to it, and we are seemingly bound by this. But now you have experienced the awareness of what you can't feel outside of the body, outside of the mind. And, okay, is there a limit to the space that you can't feel? If we were to extend that awareness of what you can't feel outwards, at what point would it ever stop? The infinite void, the contentless space, is infinite, meaning it's not finite. There's no line, there's no limit, there's no edge, there's no barrier. It just goes on. That is what is meant by the infinite consciousness. It can extend out forever. Now, recognizing there just how small and in many ways insignificant the sensations, thoughts, feelings, narratives of this individual body-mind really is. It was just a little thing this whole time. Now this individual body-mind still here. Yes, it still has its pain, it still has its shadows of the mind, still has its turmoil. That's fine. Doesn't really matter now, because the consciousness extends outwards to the infinite space, and this individual body-mind arises within that empty space. And now if you really want to deepen this, now that you are aware of the empty space that you can't feel, allow that empty space to flood the body. And realizing that there's nothing here either. You can experience the body and mind as the empty space that you can't feel. So, spending time, because the mind will object to this, the habit that we have become accustomed to is focusing and localizing entirely on this pattern within consciousness, and forgot that the infinite space around us is the consciousness in which this body-mind appears. Because the depth of the understanding here, and again, we're not going to go to intellectualizing too much, but how can this body and brain be aware of what it's not aware of? How could, if consciousness arises in the brain, how can the brain be aware of something that it's not aware of? Can we see the logical trap, the logical feedback loop? This is how ultimately the mind ends itself, because the feedback loop is seen that the logic is a trap that just bounces backwards and forwards. Because how can the brain be aware of something it is not aware of? And this is undeniable, okay? This body and mind can simply never experience the sensations outside of itself. But how can it be aware of something that it cannot possibly be aware of? Stay for a while in this. Don't go to too much intellectual reasoning. I know I just did, but it's a good opportunity there to understand that point on, yes, I will concede, an intellectual level, because it does go some way to proving scientifically this infinite universal consciousness concept, which is gaining traction in the scientific community. Because we have to concede that there is an infinite space around us that this particular body-mind simply cannot feel. And yet consciousness is conscious of that blank space. How? How can that be done? How can you be aware of nothing? The awareness of nothing, that's that's shunyata, that's the void. That is achieving the void. And bringing that emptiness then into the body and mind, and released, because it's infinite. There can't be a yes but, there can't be a next moment, there can't be a but what about, there can't even be yes but how does this help me, how does this, because that's not what you are. You're not the body and mind. You are the consciousness that is aware of the body and mind. Now, be aware, the mind will want to say that this is somehow like a nihilistic sort of practice, or a negative kind of practice, because the mind doesn't like to conjure up images of nothingness or blankness. It sort of feels like a negative state. But spend a while here. Spend a while and as the consciousness is released from the constraints of the body and mind, everything begins to shine. The beauty of the world is revealed again. It's a lightness, it's a clarity, it's a beauty, because you can see the world as it truly is, without the illusions, without the opinions, without the beliefs, without this small, petty-minded way that the body and mind tries to interact with the world. Instead, the beauty of the universe is revealed within this. And you are free. Free from the constraints of the body and mind, regardless of the situation, regardless of the circumstances. I developed this whilst in chronic pain, whilst the mind was in turmoil. This body-mind was flooded with stress. And yet, even in that situation, peace could be found through the awareness of everything I couldn't feel. I think that's everything I have for you this morning. Let me know how you get on with that practice, and feel free to, if it needs some sort of slight shift in altering how you would go about experiencing that space, but the crucial point, the key mechanism by which that method or practice works is to experience the fact that you can't feel something. And the more you can focus on that, the more your consciousness leaves this individual body-mind and abides within the infinite space in which the body-mind arises. That is everything I have for you today. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. It helps me out enormously. I'm trying to grow the channel. And that's everything. Thank you. On this beautiful English morning right here. Take care. Be well. And stay present.